The rain that came up through the ground. Under a hot sun, up on the hill, a white man with pick and shovel was digging away, leveling off the ground, while around him was a ring of dark faces, watching, watching, watching. Who was this, and why, and where? Down in the South Sea Islands, in the savage New Hebrides, that man of God, John G. Paton, was giving his life to bring the love and salvation of Jesus to a people degraded to the lowest depths. They were a sorry lot. They lied, they stole, they beat their wives and children, and worst of all, they were cannibals, cooking and eating their enemies whom they killed in battle or in stealth. On this little island of Aniva, Mr. Paton and his noble wife had labored for many a month, seemingly without result, to reform the savage man-eaters through conversion to Christ. They had come by invitation of the chief, but he was little inclined to protect them, and many times they had been attacked by the natives. These men set fire to Mr. Paton's house, but it did not burn. They threw their killing sticks at him, but could not hit him. They tried to shoot him with the few old muskets they had, but they failed. So they said, "Ah, Missy Paton's Jehovah God is too strong for us. We must get our gods to kill him." And now they thought they had found the way to do it. For Mr. Paton had come to the chief and said, "The place where my house is built is too low down by the sea. The fog comes in and the mosquitoes, and we get the fever. Give me a higher place to build, and I will make another house." The chief went apart with his men and told them, "Ah, now," they said, "we have him. We will give him the hill that is taboo, and when he begins to dig there, the gods will kill him." Now, taboo in their language means mustn't touch. Whenever they wished to keep anything sacred or safe, they devoted it to their gods and said taboo. Whoever then molested that thing or place broke the taboo and was, they believed, subject to punishment by their gods. So the chief came back to Mr. Paton and said, "Ah, Missy Paton, see, we give you that little hill. Good place to build your house. See how we love you." So here was Mr. Paton up on a hill with pick and shovel leveling off the ground, while around him was a ring of dark faces watching, watching, watching. Soon his peak turned up something big and wide and round, with two holes in it here and a hole there, and a wide slit here set with teeth. It was a human skull, and along with it were other bones, leg bones, arm bones, spines, other skulls. Mr. Paton looked up at the ring of dark faces, scowling, and he said, "Where did these bones come from?" Shrugging their shoulders, they replied, "Ah, we aren't Tana men. We don't eat the bones. Tana is an island on which Mr. Paton had labored before coming to Aniva, and the Tana people were more savage, if possible, than this." They meant contemptuously. "Tana men eat the bones of their victims at their cannibal feasts. We bury them." This hill was the graveyard for all the bones of the men they had eaten, and this was why they made it taboo, for in their darkened minds they knew their guilt, and so they made the bones untouchable by taboo. Mr. Paton took all the bones and buried them elsewhere, then calmly went on preparing the site for his house. The men of Aniva said, "Pretty soon Missy Paton fall down dead," but he didn't fall down dead. They said, "Pretty soon Missy Paton get sick," but he didn't get sick. And so at last they said, "Ah, Missy Paton's got too strong for our gods," and they became more willing to listen and began to abandon some of their evil ways. The chief became quite friendly. But the thing that broke the back of hedonism on Aniva was what the natives called the rain that came up through the ground. Aniva, being small with only low hills instead of mountains, lacked water in the dry season, for then the streams dried up and there was no water to drink. The people did not mind that much, for they could drink coconut milk and suck sugar cane, but the white people suffered from lack of fresh water. So one day Mr. Paton said to the chief, "Now, Mackay, in my country, when we want water, we dig a well, a hole in the ground, and our Jehovah God sends us water in it to drink. So I shall dig a well here and pray Jehovah God to send us water." "Oh, no, Missy," exclaimed the startled chief. "Wait until the rain comes down, and we will save all we possibly can for you." But Mr. Paton replied, "We may all die for lack of water. If no fresh water can be gotten, we may have to leave you." "Oh, Missy," cried the chief, "you must not leave us for that. Rain comes only from above. How could you expect our island to send up showers of rain from below?" "It does come up from the earth in my land at home," said Mr. Paton, "and I hope to see it here too." The chief looked upon the missionary with sorrow and said, "Oh, missy, you have been out in the sun and have become touched in the head. You are losing your mind, or you would not talk like that. Don't let our people hear you talking about going down into the earth for rain, or they will never listen to your word or believe you again." Nevertheless, Mr. Peyton started upon his work of digging a hole in the earth out by the public path where the well might be useful to all. The chief gathered his men together and said to them, "Poor missy has been out in the sun and is touched in the head. He is going mad, and we cannot drive this foolish notion out of his head. We must watch him close so that he shall not kill himself." And he set them in relays to watch him at his digging. Still they laughed at his efforts, and standing around they would ask mockingly, "Missy, have you found any rain yet?" After a while Mr. Peyton tired of this and determined to set them to work. But they would not work for water, for they know there was no rain in the ground, and they would not work for love because they did not yet love him enough. However, he knew how to get them. He went into the house and filled his pocket with fish hooks, which the natives were always eager to get because the only fish hooks they had were clumsy things made of shell. He took these fish hooks out, held up one, and said, "A fish hook to every man who digs up 3 buckets of earth from this hole." Then there was a rush for the hole and the fish hooks, for the man said, "Missy may be touched in the head, but fish hooks are fish hooks, and if we can get them by digging this hole in the earth, why, no matter about his foolish notion, we shall have the fish hooks." So they dug down until they had reached the depth of 12 feet. Then one night the side caved in. In the morning the chief came and said, "Oh, missy, see what trouble you make us. If you had been down in that hole last night, you would be buried up." By and by Queen Toria sent her big smoke ship around, and the captain come on shore, and he look around and he say, "Where Missy Peyton?" I say, "He down in that hole all buried up." He say, "How he get there?" I say, "He go down there himself and get buried up." Then the captain say to me, "Oh, you bad wicked chief, why you tell me such lies? You killed him and put him in that hole." Then the captain bring out his big guns and he shoot us all dead. "Oh, missy, you are making your own grave and our graves too. Do give up this foolish thing, for I tell you that on Aniva the rain only come down from the skies. It never come up through the ground. My men shall not go down again, fish hooks or no fish hooks." Nor would they, but Mr. Peyton rigged up a windlass and the pulley tied the rope to the bucket, and with a native teacher on guard at the top, he went down in and dug. He worked the well deeper, praying all the time that God would answer with water, and not with salt water from the sea, but with good sweet water. For now it had become not merely a matter of getting water to drink, but a matter of showing that God could do what the island men thought was impossible. At last he was down 30 feet. The earth and the coral rock began to feel damp, so at night, as Mr. Peyton came up out of the well, he said to the chief, "Namakai, I think that Jehovah God will give us water tomorrow from that hole." But the chief said, "No, missy, you will never see rain coming up from the earth on this island. We wonder what it is to be the end of this mad work of yours. We expect daily, if you reach the water, to see you drop through into the sea, and the sharks will eat you. That will be the end of it. Death to you and danger to us all. Come tomorrow," said the missionary. "I hope and believe that Jehovah God will send us rain water up through the earth." The next morning Mr. Peyton rose at daybreak, and taking a jug he went out to the well. There was the chief with many of his men. "Namakai," said Mr. Peyton, "take this jug. Is there any water in it?" "No, missy," said the chief, "no water." Then Mr. Peyton went down into the well with his tools and dug a small hole in the middle about 2 feet deep. With what joy then did he see the water rush in and fill the hole! But was it sweet water or salty? He dipped some up in his hand and tasted it. It was fresh, sweet water. There on his knees at the bottom of the well he thanked God who had so answered their prayers. As soon as he could finish his glad thanksgiving, he filled the jug and took it up. The men gathered around. "Namakai," said Mr. Peyton, "when I went down this morning, was there any water in this jug?" "No, Missy Peyton, no water." "Take it now." The chief took the jug. He shook it. It sounded like water. He put his eye to the jug's mouth. It looked like water. He spilled some in his hand. It felt like water. At last he lifted some to his lips and drank. It tasted like water. It was water, and he shouted, "Rain, rain, yes, it is rain. Oh, how did you get it?" Mr. Peyton said, "Jehovah my God gave it out of his earth in answer to our prayers and our labor. Go and see it springing up for yourselves." They were afraid to go near, but at last they formed a line, taking hold of hands, and each man thus came to the edge of the well, and leaning over saw for himself the marvel of Jehovah's rain shining far below. When they had all seen it, and were weak with wonder, the old chief exclaimed, "Missy, wonderful, wonderful is the work of your Jehovah God. No God of Aniva ever helped us in this way. The world is turned upside down since Jehovah came to Aniva. Hereafter there shall no God be worshipped on Aniva but but Jehovah God, the God of Missy Peyton, for he is the only God who could make rain come up through the ground.